The main idea of Psalms, it is a remarkable collection of Hebrew poetry, and it is focused on prayer, it's focused on worship, and it looks at God for his past faithfulness, present love, and future hope. My Lord. Most of the Psalms were written by David, but there were other authors also, like Moses and Solomon, etc. David is the author of Psalms 124. He was the youngest of 8 children born to Jesse. Jesse was a farmer and he was a breeder of sheep. And he was from the tribe of Judah. When David was young, Samuel, the prophet, summoned him and anointed him as king of Israel while Saul was still king. David was the second king of Israel. He founded the Jordanian dynasty and he united the tribes of Israel, had them under one single monarch. David was a successful warrior. Israel wanted a temple, but David was not allowed to build it because of his past sins. He's known as the apple of God's eye because he loved God very much. Wouldn't that be something nice to be said about you? That you were the apple of God's eye because you loved God very much? For our topic, we're going to look at where would I be? If it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? You know, in looking through history, we see that when slave masters and overseers rose up against me, where would I be? I made it through those times. I had no ability to get through those times on my own. If it had not been for the Lord, where would I be? Where would I be? If it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? Back in my homeland, I was taken and put on ships, put in the hold of a ship. That ship sailed to parts of the world unknown to me. The conditions on that ship were subhuman. There was a lack of fresh water. There was a lack of good food. There was a lack of decent hygiene. There was a lack of health care. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? During the world wars and other wars that this country was involved in, many African Americans served during those times. And some of those wars, they were treated less than human. The head of the Navy said that as long as I'm in charge of the Navy, a black would never be nothing but a helper in the kitchen. There was no problem with sticking African Americans in the thick of war. There was no problem knowing that they would be exposed to many kinds of diseases, yet many survived. Those that survived would say, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? During Desert Storm, many of us were exposed to a chemical called Agent Orange. It affected the health, causing diabetes, causing Parkinson's disease, and several forms of cancer. Many survived. They survived saying, where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? During the Civil War, for every 3 men killed in combat from 1861 to 1865, another 5 died from diseases. Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? During World War II, between 24,000 to 75,000 troops suffered from malaria. If and when those that made it through, they had something to say about it, they would have to say, where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? During the Great Depression, it was reported that 7 million people died from starvation. Those that made it through had a song that said, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? As history rolls before us, we can see many situations that we have heard people say they had no help. They had no hope. They had no resources. Yet they made it through saying, where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? Can I get a witness? When the wrath of our enemies rose up against us, we lived through it. We lived through it saying, Lord, where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? When the flood waters overwhelmed the earth, Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives were in the ark. And in that ark, they knew that every living thing that was on the earth was destroyed. Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? When police brutality is still raging against young black males, we always have to be on guard as our very lives depended upon it. Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? Carjacking has increased. We have to become very vigilant, especially during our travels. Not only are people getting their transportation taken, but many are being shot and killed. But those of us that make it through have to say, Lord, I was going that way and something pulled me in a different direction. Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? People riding along the freeways are being shot. Some have died. This has not stopped. Every time you get on that freeway, you don't know if it's going to be you, but you go on that freeway with one thing. Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? There have been times when storms came up. There have been times when we were in the path of death. What did we do? Well, people did whatever they needed to do to protect themselves and their family. Those that survived had one thing to say. Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? Sleeping in the open terrain, lying up against a tree. Something woke you. And you say, something woke me. And I didn't know what it was, but I looked down, and crawling up my shirt was a scorpion. Where would I be if the Lord had not woke me? Where would I be if the Lord had not been on my side? Going to get gas, got distracted, ended up going a different direction. When you finally got it together, turned around and got to your destination, you found out that just a few minutes earlier, someone had been shot and had their car taken. You can't help but wonder, where would I be if it had not been for the Lord being on my side? had a situation where something moved me. Did not want to go to Bible study. Had no explanation as to why I was not going, but I was not going. I made some calls, said I was not going. I got a call from Sister Carter. She said, "Oh, I guess someone called you and told you I wasn't going to Bible study." Well, I don't have a reason as to why I'm not going. I'm just not going. She said, "Well, Reverend, I'm not going either because there's a storm over here." That evening, we had a 3-story building that was destroyed and only a few bricks were left. The roof of the church was ripped off. My Lord, where would we be if the Lord had not been on our side? While in service, out in the field, it had rained. We were down in a gully. We heard a rumble. We thought it was a bunch of tanks. We noticed that the lieutenant and sergeants were talking. And then all of a sudden they started yelling and screaming, "Get up to the top of the hill." They yelled and screamed so that it scared us half to death. We didn't know what was going on, but that rumbling got louder and louder. When we reached the top, that noise got so loud that we didn't know what in the world was going on. There was water coming down from the mountain, sweeping everything in its path away. My Lord, my Lord, my Lord, where would we be if it had not been for the Lord on our side? We go through life, we have many encounters with all kinds of situations. We never know what we're going to be involved in. But as we take this journey, we take it with one thing on our mind. I'm taking the Lord with me because I don't know where I would be if it had not been for the Lord on my side. There was a woman who had an issue of blood. She had had that problem for quite a few years. She had spent all that she had going from doctor to doctor, but nothing was able to help her. But she heard about Jesus, and in her heart, she said, "If I could just touch the hem of his garment, I believe that I would be made whole." Jesus felt power being drawn from him. In her heart, she couldn't help but say, "When I touched him, I was made whole." Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? There was a man who could not walk. He sat by the pool of Bethesda. Multitudes of people were there. They were sick, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the movement of the water. During a certain time, an angel will come down and trouble the waters, and the first ones in would be made whole. This man was not able to get in the water, But then he had an encounter with Jesus. With Jesus, he didn't need the water. But Jesus told him, pick up thy bed and walk. Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? There was a man that was possessed with demons. He had a legion of demons in him. And he encountered Jesus and told him to have mercy on me. But the demons said, have mercy on us. And they said, let us go into the swine. They came out of the man and went into the pigs. Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? In my conclusion, I want to look at a man that was a thief being crucified with Jesus, knew that he had what was coming to him was just. But in his final hours, he said to Jesus, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. Some theologians said at that time, Jesus stopped dying and opened up the doors of the church. In that man's heart, he can only say, where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? You take a moment. You do some inventory on your life. And then you ask the question, where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? Where would I be? God bless you. Amen, amen, and amen. Reverend Harvey.